So now, the Capitol will act as if they've been in control the whole time, as if they orchestrated the whole event, right down to the double suicide. But that will only work if I play along with them. And Peeta will suffer too, if this goes wrong. But what was it Hamish said when I asked him if he had told Peeta the situation? That he had to pretend to be desperately in love. Don't have to. He's already there. Already thinking ahead of me in the games again, and well aware of the danger we're in? Or already desperately in love? I don't know. I haven't even begun to separate out my feelings about Peeta. It's too complicated. What I did as part of the games, as opposed to what I did out of anger at the Capitol, or because of how it would have viewed back in District 12, or simply because it was the only decent thing to do, or what I did because I cared about him. These are questions to be unraveled back home, in the peace and quiet of the woods, where no one is watching. Not here, with every eye upon me. But I won't have that luxury for who knows how long. And right now, the most dangerous part of the Hunger Games is about to begin. Chapter 27. The anthem booms in my ears, and then I hear Caesar Flickerman greeting the audience. Does he know how crucial it is to get every word right from now on? He must. He will want to help us. The crowd breaks into applause as the prep teams are presented. I imagine Flavius, Vienna, and Octavia bouncing around and taking ridiculous bobbing bows. It's a safe bet they're clueless. Then Effie's introduced. How long she's waited for this moment. I hope she's able to enjoy it, because as misguided as Effie can be, she has a very keen instinct about certain things, and must at least suspect we're in trouble. Portia and Cinna receive huge cheers. Of course, they've been brilliant. Had a dazzling debut. And now I understand Cinna's choice of dress for me tonight. I need to look as girlish and innocent as possible. Hamish's appearance brings a round of stomping that goes on for at least 5 minutes. Well, he's accomplished a first, keeping not only one, but 2 tributes alive. What if he hadn't warned me in time? Would I have acted differently? Flaunted the moment with the berries in the Capitol's face? No, I don't think so. But I could easily have been a lot less convincing than I need be now. Right now. Because I feel the plate lifting me up to the stage. Blinding lights. The deafening roar rattles the metal under my feet. Then there's Peeta just a few yards away. He looks so clean and healthy and beautiful. I can hardly recognize him. But his smile is the same whether in mud or in the Capitol. And when I see it, I take about 3 steps and fling myself into his arms. He staggers back, almost losing his balance, and that's when I realize the slim metal contraption in his hand is some kind of cane. He rights himself, and we just cling to each other while the audience goes insane. He's kissing me, and all the time I'm thinking, Do you know how much danger we're in? After about 10 minutes of this, Caesar Flickerman taps on his shoulder to continue the show, and Peeta just pushes him aside without even glancing at him. The audience goes berserk. Whether he knows it or not, Peeta is, as usual, playing the crowd exactly right. Finally, Hamish interrupts us and gives us a good-natured shove towards the victor's chair. Usually, this is a single, ornate chair from which the winning tribute watches a film of the highlights of the games. But since there are 2 of us, the game makers have provided a plush red velvet couch. A small one, my mother would call it a love seat, I think. I sit so close to Peeta that I'm practically on his lap, but one look from Hamish tells me it isn't enough. Kicking off my sandals, I tuck my feet to the side and lean my head against Peeta's shoulder. His arm goes around me automatically, and I feel like I'm back in the cave, curled up against him, trying to keep warm. His shirt is made of the same yellow material as my dress, but Portia's put him in long black pants. No sandals either, but a pair of sturdy black boots he keeps solidly planted on the stage. I wish Cinna had given me a similar outfit. I feel so vulnerable in this flimsy dress, but I guess that was the point. Caesar Flickerman makes a few more jokes, and then it's time for the show. This will last exactly 3 hours, and is required viewing for all of Panem. As the lights dim and the seal appears on the screen, I realize I'm unprepared for this. I do not want to watch my 22 fellow tributes die. I saw enough of them die the first time. My heart starts pounding, and I have a strong impulse to run. How have the other victors faced this alone? During the highlights, they periodically show the winner's reaction up on a box in the corner of the screen. I think back to earlier years. Some are triumphant, pumping their fists in the air, beating their chests. Most just seem stunned. All I know is that the only thing keeping me on this love seat is PETA, his arm around my shoulder, his other hand claimed by both of mine. Of course, the previous victors didn't have the Capitol looking for a way to destroy them. Condensing several weeks into 3 hours is quite a feat, especially when you consider how many cameras were going at once. Whoever put together the highlights has to choose what sort of story to tell. This year, for the first time, they tell a love story. I know PETA and I won, but a disproportionate amount of time is spent on us, right from the beginning. I'm glad, though, because it supports the whole crazy in love thing that's my defense for defying the Capitol. Plus it means we won't have as much time to linger over the deaths. The first half hour or so focuses on the pre-arena events, the reaping, the chariot ride through the Capitol, our training scores, and our interviews. There's a sort of upbeat soundtrack playing under it that makes it twice as awful because, of course, almost everyone on screen is dead. Once we're in the arena, there's detailed coverage of the bloodbath, and then the filmmakers basically alternate between shots of tributes dying and shots of us. Mostly PETA, really. There's no question he's carrying this romance thing on his shoulders. Now I see what the audience saw, how he misled the careers about me, stayed awake the entire night under the Tracker-Jacker tree, fought Cato to let me escape, and even while he lay in that mud bank, whispered my name in his sleep. I seem heartless in comparison, dodging fireballs, dropping nests, and blowing up supplies, until I go hunting for Rue. They play her death in full, the spearing, my failed rescue attempt, my arrow through the boy from District 1's throat, Rue's drawing her last breath in my arms, and the song. I get to sing every note of the song. Something inside me shuts down, and I'm too numb to feel anything. It's like watching complete strangers in another Hunger Games. But I do notice they all meant the part where I covered her in flowers. Right, because even that smacks of rebellion. Things pick up for me once they've announced 2 tributes from the same district can live, and I shout out PETA's name, and then clap my hands over my mouth. If I've seemed indifferent to him earlier, I make up for it now, by finding him, nursing him back to health, going to the feast for the medicine, and being very free with my kisses. Objectively, I can see the Mutts and Cato's death are as gruesome as ever, but again, I feel it happens to people I have never met. And then comes the moment with the berries. I can hear the audience hushing one another, not wanting to miss a thing. A wave of gratitude to the filmmakers sweeps over me, when they end not with the announcement of our victory, but with me pounding on the glass door of the hovercraft, screaming PETA's name as they try to revive him. In terms of survival, it's my best moment all night. The anthem's playing yet again, and we rise as President Snow himself takes the stage, followed by a little girl carrying a cushion that holds the crown. There's just one crown, though, and you can hear the crowd's confusion. Whose head will he place it on? Until President Snow gives it a twist, and it separates into 2 halves. He places the first around PETA's brow with a smile. He's still smiling when he settles the second on my head, but his eyes, just inches from mine, are as unforgiving as snakes. That's when I know that even though both of us would have eaten the berries, I am to blame for having the idea. I am the instigator. I'm the one to be punished. Much bowing and cheering follows. My arm is about to fall off from waving when Caesar Flickerman finally bids the audience good night, reminding them that to tune in for tomorrow for the final interviews, as if they have a choice. PETA and I are whisked to the President's mansion for the victory banquet, where we have very little time to eat as Capitol officials and particularly generous sponsors elbow one another out of the way as they try to get their picture with us. Face after beaming face flashes by, becoming increasingly intoxicated as the evening wears on. Occasionally, I catch a glimpse of Haymitch, which is reassuring, or President Snow, which is terrifying. but I keep laughing and thanking people and smiling as my picture is taken. The one thing I never do is let go of Peeta's hand. The sun is just peeking over the horizon when we straggle back to the 12th floor of the training center. I think now I'll finally get a word alone with Peeta, but Hamish sends him off with Portia to get something fitted for the interview, and personally escorts me to my door. Why can't I talk to him? I ask. Plenty of time for talk when we get home, says Hamish. Go to bed. You're on air at 2. Despite Hamish's running interference, I'm determined to see Peeta privately. After I toss and turn for a few hours, I slip into the hall. My first thought is to check the roof, but it's empty. Even the city streets far below are deserted after the celebration last night. I go back to bed for a while, and then decide to go directly to his room. But when I try to turn the knob, I find my own bedroom door has been locked from the outside. I suspect Hamish initially, but then there's a more insidious fear that the Capitol may be monitoring and confining me. I've been unable to escape since the Hunger Games began, but this feels different, much more personal. This feels like I've been imprisoned for a crime, and I'm waiting sentencing. I quickly get back in bed and pretend to sleep until Effie Trinket comes to alert me to the start of another big day. I have about 5 minutes to eat a bowl of hot grain and stew before the prep team descends. All I have to say is, the crowd loved you, and it's unnecessarily to speak for the next couple of hours. When Cinna comes in, he shoos them out and dresses me in a white, gauzy dress and pink shoes. Then he personally adjusts my makeup until I seem to radiate a soft, rosy glow. We make idle chit-chat, but I'm afraid to ask him anything of real importance, because after the incident with the door, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched constantly. The interview takes place right down the hall in the sitting room. A space has been cleared, and the love seat has been moved in, and surrounded by vases of red and pink roses. There are only a handful of cameras to record the event. No live audience, at least. Caesar Flickerman gives me a warm hug when I come in. Congratulations, Katniss. How are you faring? Fine. Nervous about the interview, I say. Don't be. We're going to have a fabulous time, he says, giving my cheek a reassuring pat. I'm not good at talking about myself, I say. Nothing you say will be wrong, he says. And I think, oh, Caesar, if only that were true. But actually, President Snow may be arranging some sort of accident for me as we speak. Then Peeta's there, looking handsome in red and white, pulling me off to the side. I hardly get to see you. Hamish seems bent on keeping us apart. Hamish is actually bent on keeping us alive, but there are too many ears listening, so I just say, yes, he's gotten very responsible lately. Well, there's just this, and we go home. Then he can't watch us all the time, says Peeta. I feel a sort of shiver run through me, and there's no time to analyze why, because they're ready for us. We sit somewhere formally on the love seat. But Caesar says, oh, go ahead and curl up next to him if you want. It looked very sweet. So I tuck my feet up, and Peeta pulls me in close to him. Someone counts backward, and just like that, we're being broadcast live to the entire country. Caesar Flickerman is wonderful. Teasing, joking, getting choked up when the occasion presents itself. He and Peeta already have the rapport they established that night of the first interview. That easy banter. So I just smile a lot and try to speak as little as possible. I mean, I have to talk some, but as soon as I can, I redirect. Eventually, though, Caesar begins to pose questions that insist on fuller answers. Well, Peeta, we know from our days in the cave that it was love at first sight for you from what, age 5? Caesar says. From the moment I laid eyes on her, says Peeta. But Katniss, what a ride for you! I think the real excitement for the audience was watching you fall for him. When did you realize you were in love with him? Asks Caesar. Oh, that's a hard one. I give a faint, breathy laugh and look down at my hands. Help!